am going to be presenting the Family Enterprise USA Annual Family Business Survey Results 2023. And I will start by saying this survey was in the field the first 2 months of 2023. So it's the results from their 2022 business in most cases, and also looking forward. I will begin by just explaining that Family Enterprise USA sole mission and purpose is to promote generationally owned family businesses and their lifetime of savings. We represent all sizes of business and all industries, as Mike mentioned, at a national level in Washington, D.C. 2 of our platinum sponsors are the Squire Patton Boggs law firm, as well as the Brownstein law firm, who we also retain in D.C. And so we're really pleased to have them as platinum sponsors. They kind of put their money where their mouth is. In addition, we have all these family business centers around the country, including the High Center, that send out our survey to help us get respondents. And once again, we couldn't do this without their support. We really appreciate that, as well as the trade associations, the American Farm Bureau, American Trucking Association, and the California Association of Winemakers. Family businesses in America are big business. If you don't know that, you're going to listen to these statistics, and I hope you're going to remember them, because they are very, very important, because you are very, very important. 32 million family businesses in America. They generate 83 million jobs, or 59% of the private workforce. That's why you are so important. 54% of the GDP, or $7.7 trillion. So that's why members of Congress need to hear from you, want to hear from you, and that's why you're so very important. The survey results are from, as I mentioned, the first 2 months of 2022, 571 respondents, more than we've ever received in history, and we started this survey in 2007. We included 42 states, so we have respondents from 42 states in the nation. So let's begin about who actually owns the business and who responded to this survey. So 84% of the respondents are the sole or majority owner in their business. So this is the owners and managers of the business. And 92% of them are sole partners, sole proprietors, or senior management. And this is exactly what we want. We want the decision makers in the family business to be responding to our survey. The principal industries might surprise you, or maybe not, but it always surprises members of Congress, because 26% are manufacturing. When I meet with members of Congress and I say family business, many times they say small business, and I say no. They are small businesses that are family businesses, but there's also medium and large size businesses. And oh, by the way, while we are a country of family farms, only 5% of the family businesses in America are farming families. So of course, they're very, very important to this community, but so are manufacturers who have the same illiquid nature of their business and their assets that farmers have. So we don't want to forget that. Where is the ownership? Well, 68% are generation 1 and 2. And again, this is relatively consistent from year after year. Active in the business, 60% of them are generation 1 and 2 in terms of the management of the business, as you can see. And in fact, 36% are generation 2. How many years have these family businesses been in business? Well, 74% of them have been in business 30 years or more. Why is that? Because we know family businesses plan their business as a legacy, not just for themselves and their employees, but their community as well. But 37% of them have been in business 50 to 100 years. Again, they plan their business for the long term. Now let's talk about how family businesses pass their business on to the next generation. Well, 86% of them say passing the ownership of the business on to the next generation is very important to the sustainability of the business. Well, they say that, and that percent is consistent year after year. And 79% say, yes, it's part of my family legacy. This year, we're very happy to say more family businesses took our advice and passed their ownership on to the next generation. In fact, as you can see from the slide, 66% passed their business on. And this is a 29% increase up from last year when only 51%. Family businesses struggle with this, and I'm glad to see that many of you are taking advantage of this very high gift and estate lifetime exemption at $13 million per person and $26 million per couple, and passing that ownership on to the next generation. It really is about sustainability and a legacy. You really need to do that in order to have that sustainability and that legacy. The disappointing side of this is only 34% of family businesses have passed on full control or full or partial control in any significant manner. So while you are doing a good job passing on ownership, it is really important if you pass on the responsibility of the management of the company, you really pass on that control, because we all know it is important economically as well as psychologically to the next generation. The strategies used to pass that business on are pretty consistent year after year. 53% gift, then sale, then loans, and then other methods is the strategies they have used. Now we're going to talk about revenues, employees, and the community. So 34% employ more than 100 people. And in fact, 24%, as you can see from this slide, employ 100 to 500 people. There still is a large percent, 49%, that employ 1 to 50 people. But generally, the family businesses that reply to this survey are at the medium to large size business. This is the first time we've asked this question, and I'm so pleased with the answer. 72% of family businesses have generational employees. That means they have more than one generation of a family working in the business. That is amazing. Again, family businesses plan their business as a legacy for themselves and their family members, but also in their employees, and their employees really understand and respect that. And many of them work generationally in the business. Did they lose or add jobs in 2022? Well, 61% of them added jobs, and this is during part of the pandemic. And in fact, 91% of them kept employees employed. We know this throughout the pandemic. This has been a pretty consistent number. Family businesses through the pandemic kept their employees employed, even some of them that closed their business or closed their operations. Those that added jobs, 88% of them added 1 to 50 jobs, and 94% of them added jobs overall. Those that lost jobs, they lost jobs at the lower end of the spectrum. So 90% of them that lost jobs, they were in the 1 to 50 category as well. Salary and benefits, an important point to make to legislators. As I keep saying, family businesses plan their business as a legacy for themselves, for their family, for their employees, for the community. So they understand that it's important to pay the business, the owners of the business, the employees of the business, more, higher wages, higher benefits. 46% of them pay above average to their employees in terms of salaries and benefits. Very, very important for members of Congress to understand. Gross revenues, 39% of them had over 20 million in gross revenues. And in fact, 23% of them had over 50 million in revenues. So we asked, did your business grow or decline in 2022? And 71% said my business grew in 2022. Again, even during the pandemic. What percent did they grow? Well, 52% of them said they grew by 11% or more. And in fact, 31% grew by 11 to 20%. So that's a very high percent. 11 to 20% growth in a business, as you all know, is pretty significant. So even during the pandemic, 31% of them grew 11 to 20%. So of those that declined, 57% of them declined by 10% or less. So the conclusion here is even during the pandemic, family businesses grew. They kept their employees employed. And for those that had to lay employees off, it was a small number. And for those that declined, again, it was a small percent. Did your business grow or decline in 2022? And if so, what were those reasons that it grew or declined? And we can see this is pretty consistent year after year. 35% came from those strategic business choices they would make, 26% economic conditions, and then 22% industry conditions, as well as some other reasons you can see at the bottom of the slide. Do they expect their businesses to grow in 2023? So again, I remind you that we did this survey the first 2 months of 2023. So they had the results from 2022 and they were looking forward in terms of what would happen in 2023. 65% of them said, we expect our business to grow. 17% no change, and only 18% expected their business to decline in 2023. What do they think is their greatest impediment to growth in 2023 and 24? Well, all of you probably know this cost and availability of labor continues to be an issue today, and even more so was an issue early in this year. Then we have the market conditions, 30%, and inflation is number 3 at 15%, when 3 years ago, inflation wasn't even on the list. So I know that family businesses around the country are struggling with inflation, and we have a slide to reflect that. Again, another really important statistic for members of Congress, because they do not connect the dots on this. 82% of family businesses give locally to a charity, a local charity, or a local charity within a national charity. So why is that important? Because if that family business has to be sold for whatever reason to pay the estate tax or some other reason, the family loses their livelihood, the employees lose their job, and the community loses all that giving. So 70% of those that give locally give 0 to 20%. I'm sorry, I misstated that. So 82% of all family businesses give to a local charity or a national organization, local charity. That's the important statistic. Critical tax and economic issues facing family businesses. Let's talk about those. Income tax continues to be the top tax issue for family businesses. And in fact, it's even higher than it was last year. As you can see, it's 50% this year, where it was 45% last year. Estate tax still is very important. It dropped a little bit from last year, but it's second. And then payroll tax, and then capital gains. So again, this is their top economic issue. I believe top tax policy issue. I believe that income tax is at the top of the list because, as we'll learn, most family businesses operate as a pass-through entity. So that means they're an LLC, an LP, an S Corp, an entity in which the income gets passed through to the owner's income tax, individual income tax. So they are paying 37% in just federal income tax, whereas corporate America in the last tax bill that was passed by Congress gets to pay 21%. So C Corps get to pay a 21% tax, and family businesses that are pass-throughs, which are 80% of you, you get to pay the ordinary income tax rate of 37% plus. Estate tax, as we just learned, is an important issue for family businesses. 33% of you would like to see the exemption at its level made permanent at this 13 million level per person, 26 million per couple. 32% would, of course, like to see the tax repealed, and 16% would like to see the rate reduced, which is important because there is legislation in the House and the Senate that does just that. It reduces the rate of the tax from 40% to 20%. So whether you sell your business and pay a 20% capital gains, or you die, you're only paying a 20% tax, which is at least more reasonable. Top economic policy priority continues to be income tax, once again, for those reasons I just talked about. Next is estate tax, but look at number 3. It's simplifying the tax code. It's never been this high on our list. And I suspect it's the case because people are just frustrated. More rules, more regulation, more taxes, more tax guidance, more compliance, just makes running your business every day more and more difficult. But number 4 is federal deficit. Family businesses are business owners. They understand what it means to make money or not make money. They understand what debt does to a business. And so you are all concerned about this deficit that our country has, and justifiably so. So I mentioned pass-through entities, and that's why income tax is so important to family businesses. Well, that's because 80% of family businesses operate, as I mentioned, as a pass-through entity. In fact, 56% are S corps. We didn't know this percent before this survey. Members of Congress asked us, why is 199A legislation important? How many family businesses really do pay ordinary income tax rates? And now we know 80%. That's why we need to fix this legislation. That's why we need to help family businesses, so they're paying the same rate of tax that corporations are paying. In terms of the minority-owned businesses, well, the percents may not be as high as we suspected or as family businesses would suspect. Only 22% are women-owned and only 2% Asian American, 1% Hispanic, and 1% African American-owned. Inflation. First time we asked this question. 70% of family businesses were impacted by inflation, a higher percent, quite frankly, than I would have thought. So inflation, as we learned from the economic priorities, is really an important issue. And in fact, 58% have been impacted by environmental concerns. Again, something we've never known in the past. And lastly, supply chain issues. Wow, 86% of family businesses were impacted by supply chain issues. We hope that that has gotten better through 2023. How many states do the respondents do business in? Well, you can see 25% of them operate in 21 states or more. And in fact, 32% operate in 2 to 5 states. So they tend to be more multi-state. So that's the results of the survey. I'm going to move now to what Mike mentioned is the Congressional Family Business Caucus. This is a really important development. We've been working on this for over 9 months with Congress. It is a Congressional Family Business Caucus. Its sole purpose is to educate members of Congress, because we've learned they really don't understand what a family business is. They don't understand what you do. They don't understand how you do it. They don't understand what your concerns are, even though 100 members of our Congress come from or work with family businesses. So we have asked them to form a caucus. It is a bipartisan education, not policy caucus, and its sole purpose is what I just stated. It is really, really important that you as family business owners come to DC, tell your story, let members of Congress and staff members know what you do, how you do, and what your concerns are. It will be bicameral, which means it will be House and Senate. We've got this House all organized, and we're working on the Senate. As I mentioned, it is not a policy caucus, it's an education caucus. We're hosting for the caucus these fly-ins. We did one in February. We have one next week, May 16th in Washington, D.C. If you're interested, let us know. We'd love to have you join. And we have another September 20th in Washington, D.C. as well. Typically, they're an hour-and-a-half event over a lunch on the Hill. Next week, we'll be in the Budget Committee room. I mentioned that we have organized the House with Congress. There are 2 Republicans and 2 Democrat co-chairs, Jody Arrington of Texas, Republican, Brad Schneider of Illinois, Democrat, Claudia Tenney of New York, Republican, and Henry Cuellar of Texas, Democrat. They're all very supportive, very helpful. They've been to our meetings. They've helped obviously lead the meetings, and they've done podcasts in the case of Representative Tenney and Representative Snyder for us. They come from family businesses. They understand family business. In the Senate, Susan Collins has agreed to be the co-chair in the Senate as a Republican, as from a senator who is from a family business, who understands family business as well. And we're working on a Democrat co-chair in the Senate as well. These are some of the names of some of the caucus members that have already joined. We're hopeful that we will have more. We just had 2 more added today. As I mentioned earlier, there are 100 members of Congress that are from family businesses. And in fact, there's 70 that have expressed an interest in becoming part of this caucus. But Washington, D.C. is about bureaucracy, so it takes some time to get through the paperwork to actually get them part of the caucus. And I will say they need to hear from you. They need to hear from constituents, or else they're not going to join the caucus. So we really encourage you to reach out to your members of Congress, both Republicans and Democrats. I mentioned the event next week in Washington, D.C. Again, if you're interested, let me know. This is, well, I realize it's very hard to read the screen. This is the Dear Colleague letter that's very important. So if your staff member from your member of Congress or your member of Congress asks you, what do I need to do? They need to look at this caucus, a Dear Colleague letter that came from one of the 4 co-chairs. They received it. They need to contact one of the co-chairs and just say, please count me in. I want to be part of the caucus. It's really that simple. So now I would like to just conclude and thank you all for your attention. And I will be happy to take questions.